great piece. I want to make sure maybe I can answer off kilter here, but
Yeah.
this particular piece used to hang in a barber shop in Westwood, California, on the campus of UCLA, and was a spot that had been frequented by some legendary Black student athletes, um, and was a hub for sort of that time. And it very much sort of mirrors the work I've been endeavoring now, where you really have to plant trees for shade you'll never sit under. You really do have to
Right.
find the legacy projects and the legacy default settings, as I'll probably say more than once during our time, in terms of what you're trying to do. Nothing happens by
Mhm.
accident. Every day is a gift. If you just sort of keep trying to get at it, I think there's a chance. It's something I say all the time. It's got a chance, even when I know it's going well. So I think there's a little bit of humility that goes into just seeing something out. So, you know, no, look, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation, because I think a lot of the work I'm endeavoring on is iterative, and it's about having conversations and dialogue, and just meeting people and being curious about their journey and what they're trying to do. So I think there's a little bit of mastery that is in all of us. And I often say
Mhm.
intelligence and wisdom is widely distributed, but opportunities are not. So my job is to canvas far and wide so I can beg, borrow, and steal on people's learnings and experience, because only the people who do the work do the learning.
Right. Right. All right. So let's go back a ways and um, tell us your background
Mm.
and how you grew up and how you got connected to soccer and walk us through that journey.
Well, I know I'm special, not just because my mother says I am. I think we're all special like that. But my journey is truly unique in the sense that I'm an Army brat, born in Germany. Um, Soccer was my first sport. Went to 6 schools in my first 8 grades.
Wow.
Always moved, always was the new kid. And every sport I ever played, and I did everything from soccer to track to wrestling to baseball, basketball, football, flag football. I literally did everything that was on offer. I even think I did a little bit of bowling for like a season somewhere. My mom, I think, got me into one of the bases. So soccer was a constant, and it was something that I always gravitated toward and tried to always find. And ironically, it was when we were living in Alaska. My dad was stationed in Fort Greely, and we used to get like this random handful of channels way before anything of any viewing streaming that we have now. And we used to get Rai, the RAI, Rai, and we used to get that, and I used to just consume their like weekly Serie A highlights. This is 80, 81, 82, and I just was really consumed by whatever nuggets I used to get. And it wasn't until we moved to Colorado for the second time in the mid to late 80s that I really sort of get dropped into a community. I grew up watching Marcelo Balboa and Robin Fraser, and trust me, I tell those guys all the time that I am younger than them, although I do have three gray hairs. And I grew up in a really cool time in Colorado where the game was sort of, it was new and old at the same time. There's a lot of energy, and Lauren Donaldson, who I've known forever, was instrumental in helping paint pictures for how to play. Chris Martinez, who was he's a great coach in the MLS ecosystem, but was a big time player with the Clemson. Sterling Westcott with the Fresno State, and go on and bore people with random names connected to MLS back in the day. But it was like that community that I really sort of start to identify. The first thing I remember really saving up for was a pair of Copas, and just loved the game. Always fell in love with the game. Went to Santa Barbara, had an incredible small college soccer experience. Playing for Dave Wolf at Westmont in Santa Barbara. So to say anything more than that. And it was a professional. It was very much like I think a lot of the top 50 Division One men's programs are in terms of the professionalism. Like we did a lot of stuff back in the day because I think Dave had that experience where we did everything that pros did in terms of how we tried to prepare our training, the periodization, and it was a very professional environment. And I took a lot from that, a lot, and I learned. And, he was very intentional about getting me connected to people. Got connected to Siggy Schmidt. He gave me my first big break coaching with the 20s back in 1996. Him and Dean Wurzberger at Chula Vista at the training center. And I was assistant coach at San Jose State at the time. I think one of the youngest full-time assistants in the country. Had just turned 22. And, I thought I was going to be on that coach pathway. But as you know, it's not what you like. It's what you don't like that shapes you. And I think it wasn't enough. And what I mean is that any coach will tell you that, particularly in college, like the coaching teaching is like 20% of the job. Well, I wanted to be 100% of the job. And I didn't really have that understanding as much as I was prepared and was able to do some forward executive thinking, if you will, to run a program. But it wasn't as attractive as finding another journey in the game. And kept playing and just had a great experience playing with the San Francisco Seals when I was a teenager and through college. And in 97, people have been talking a lot about the US Open Cup recently, but in 97, that group made it all the way to the Open Cup semifinals, lost to DC United in Stockton, California. This is vintage Echeverry, Moreno, Pope, Bruce, coming out to Stockton to play like in a random midweek while they're chasing another title. I remember how mad Bruce was in a good way. I told Bruce this when we worked at ESPN. I was like, you were mad. I knew we weren't going to win, kind of like you were like, what are we doing all the way away from home? But and then the next year, I was working at Soccer America magazine at the time. The next year, the team got a deal to do all his home games on like local Bay Area TV. And the president, GM, coach of the team, Tom Simpson, I grew up with his son, Sean, who's now running the Seals now, the only free-to-play team, I believe, in the whole MLS ecosystem, which is a whole nother story, which I think is really amazing. MLS Next Pro, MLS Next. And they were like, hey, you want to do the games? And I started calling games for them. Started thinking like, this might be fun. Was just basically selling my tape out of or giving out my tape like the back of the trunk at a gas station. And got a call from a woman named Emily Bolting. I've told this story. I tell it every year to a bunch of students that I speak to. Talk about being ready. Sent my tape out. Forgot. I just was sending it out everywhere. Anyone with any TV in it. Forgot I'd sent it out to this woman. She hits me up probably 2 months later. Emily Bolting, coordinating producer of Fox Sports World in Los Angeles. She says, hey, you want to come down? And I'm in the Bay Area. So I drive down there on a Tuesday, interview on a Wednesday. They're like, hey, we like you. Can you stay till a Thursday? Yeah. They're like, hey, we really like you. Can you do a screen test on Friday? I did. And 7 a.m. the next morning, Max Bretos and I did our very first game together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you never know when life's going to come. It comes at you fast. And really, man, that's where I was doing. And really now just still sort of leveraging that experience and trying to figure out what where the equity lies for me to do the most work in this game. But, that's sort of the first act, if you will, in just a blessed soccer journey, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a little bit about, the covering the MLS and, you're talking about, original MLS, like way back and, how you've seen it grow and how you've seen it develop and evolve. And, that'll bring us to what you're doing now for sure.
Yeah.
How like culturally it's changed,
It's, I used to have to be a bit of a soccer apologist, even in Los Angeles, which is a great market, right? And then I think now you can tell a new neighbor, yeah, I work in soccer. And it goes, oh, okay. Right. I work in Major League Soccer. I work for US Soccer. It's got to a point now where it's waterfalled all the way down where you don't have to really spend a whole lot of time explaining what you do, what it is, and all that. So I take pride in sort of the longevity of the journey. Right. I
Yeah.
do. And I think I'm just a deep level of appreciation and always want to express the gratitude
Mhm.
for the game. My father's been passed away almost 10 years now, and we used to always kind of joke, like, he used to always say, "Hey, you're gonna have to get a real job one day." And I'd be like, haha, I will. And here I am, like, two and a half grown kids of my three. One's almost there, my last one. And I think, wow, I'm still doing this. I'm still connected to the game, and the cool thing is, I get to be a firsthand witness to everything related to the league, and now you're getting second and third generation kids now, you know. And I've also seen it through the prism of working with MLS rookies for the last almost 10 years. You see how those rookie classes used to be juniors and seniors in college. Now you see these rookie classes be 15, 16, 17. And what you pour into a 21, 22-year old as they transition is different what you need to pour into a 15, 16, 17-year old as they transition, right? I'm much more interested in being a part of the mechanisms and the machinery, if you will, that helps grow players and really puts an emphasis on not player development, personal development. Everyone needs a little bit different. I learned this working with the top college football teams like Michigan or Alabama, Florida State, Texas A&M, in my work in player development. And the best places, organizations, companies, 501(c)(3)s, whatever it may be, families, they know everyone needs the same thing, but in a different way, right? The same thing is food, love, water, light, right? Like that's what we need, and be energy and be connected people. But how we get that is different, and why we need it for the different sort of stimulus that come with that is different. But it's all the same, right? We all want to be top of the canopy and getting all the light and all the water and everything. But it's really like, how much can we do to not just identify problems, just to speak on possible solutions, right? And that's why I'm
Mhm.
hopeful that I am in general, no matter what I've been doing. And I think I'm comfortable now saying I haven't been perfect. I've won, I've lost, I've failed, I've succeeded, I've had a lot of money, I've had no money in this game. I've done it all, but I'm a good dude. Like I will own that. Like I'm a good dude. I care about the game. I care about people. I like when people try to do things the right way and in their own way, which I've learned to give more people grace to be themselves. It doesn't always have to be this mold that you have to fit yourself into and come out. Sometimes you can be an amoeba in your growth, right? So, I think the league culturally now is younger. It is much more part of the culture, and there's a lot of factors. It can be video games, it can be the Americanization and professionalization of youth soccer, which didn't exist 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. If you even think about Development Academy,
Yeah.
that was run by US Soccer, which is technically a nonprofit, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it really now is in this, I would say, version 2.0, maybe 2.5 of what it looks like. And we still need to work out the kinks and how we develop players and how we help them be good people, because you will spend so much more time outside of the game, good Lord willing, than you will inside the game. It's just skewed because you're in the game for the first 30 years of your life, 35 years of your life, and then all of a sudden you're not. So, I think being a support to the players who come in and out of this league is something that I appreciate, and I value their relationships, because that's how you can have the banter, and the jokes,
Right.
and I look forward to those times more than anything.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that brings you to where you are today, and I want to get into that. So you're now the executive director of Black Players for Change, which is connected to the MLS. Um, I don't know, is that the correct word to use, connected, or is it part of the
Yeah,
MLS,
no,
or
yeah, no,
define that for
connected.
me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a great clarifier, Scott. I would say connected in the same way that the Players Association is connected, but in an additional sort of large tendon, right? Major League Soccer is the platform for all of our players. And they
Mm-hmm.
are the ones led by Commissioner Garber and Shola Winley and Jamil Northcutt, and a handful of other folks who were very instrumental in making sure that in the wake of George Floyd, these players had a voice. And they came together in the bubble in Orlando, and ironically are co-writes footage holders of all the demonstration footage, which I think is an amazing precedent as well. And the mission then is the mission now. It's just different tactics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I use the game to inform me, right? The object of the game has always been really twofold. It's been to score goals and to not let them in, right? Now, over the years, there's been a variety of tactics and ways, right? Right now, we're in the pressure counter pressure phase, just for ease of conversation. And as a player, playing in every moment because you're either pressuring or you're counter pressuring, right? So, can you play in every moment? And that's kind of the way the game is right now. But as you know, like it used to be, you needed someone to be a 10 to help operate. You needed a stopper sweeper. Now I'm really aging myself, right? There's a time when
Yeah.
you needed marauding outside backs, Roberto Carlos, Philip
Mm-hmm.
Lahm, right? Like Cafu, like guys who go. If you don't have that, so and now the game is just sort of more like this fluid mix of like style and grace and eloquent technical ability. And of course, these guys are just amazing Ferraris. All of them are Ferraris. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not players at all. Just think about if you went into a rally with all fast cars, they'd be doing fast car stuff. And that's how I see um, all these players who play in these top leagues at every level. There's just a dynamism about just the kinetic beauty of it all. And I think what we've done is try to find a place for ourselves in terms of fighting for equality and justice for everyone. And the word that I always kind of go back to is equality. Yes, there are issues that are distinct to the Black community, the Black soccer community. We're fighting those. But can we also be someone and something who builds for everyone else, right? Because equality is the goal, just like I said, scoring a goal and not letting them in is the goal, and that's our same sort of goal and sort of transfer of energy. So we have a great relationship with Major League Soccer. We have a great relationship with the Players Association. We are growing in our significance and value, I would say, in terms of our partnerships and actually the programmatics. And I'm really in a really great place because the founders and the board of directors, exec committee are all people are amazing gentlemen and scholars and so happen to be just fantastic players. So, we're focused on our membership right now, in terms of just really activating all the amazing players in the league, US soccer. We want to be a part of their connective tissue as well. There's so many players that are connected through the national team now, right? In terms of and then the other part I would say is just like governance and policy, access, representation. What can we do to create meaningful pathways for Black coaches, executives, staff members, anyone who wants to live the joy and the misery of the soccer experience? I think it's everyone's right to be able to have,
Careful.
right? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's what I say. Like, no one needs to say, because I tell this is funny. Like my really close friends who are in the league and coaching, head coaches, the guys I kind of really grew up with, not that people I know. It's like a different, and you sort of talk different, right? And
Yep.
we usually joke like after a win, man, you feel like where's Pep? Like you feel like you could take on City. You lose and
Right.
you never were in it. You're like ducking the JV team at the high school around the corner, right? You're like,
Right.
hey, those guys might get us today because we don't do A, B, and C. So I tell people like, when you're able to share a big win with your family in the stands, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
dopamine rush I will always chase. And so when I think about opportunity, that's what I think about is just for someone to have that feeling. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
like today was awesome. And it was because I do this amazing job in this amazing sport. And that's what I think about representation. This is what I say about promotion relegation. It's not about the structures, it's about the people,
Mm-hmm.
right? The reason why we
Yep.
love promotion, and some people love relegation. Some people like Halloween more than Thanksgiving. It's all good, right? Um,
Right.
and eh, it's the intergenerational stuff you see, right? The three men, you know, who are and their team finally makes it, or even in baseball, like when there's always a 32-year-old lifetime minor leaguer who gets the call up to the
Yeah.
show. It's the people. So
Yep.
when people talk about those things, it's about like the people, and if we can create structures that allow people to be the story, that allow people to be the driving narrative, then we will all sort of find humanity, be all connected, because we'll all know what it's like to be a 9-year-old and your team loses and you understand what that means and you're crying, because I was
Yeah.
like that, and I know a lot of kids who are like that. So, and I know a lot of grown men, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I commiserate with when you see like a team that, who is relegated, and you see like the pain of it all. So I don't know. I just say that if we can find more reasons to be together, right? And this is not Pollyanna, but this is the world. You have to manifest it. We are so much more united. And if we think about all the things that US soccer and American soccer ecosystem needs, I bet you a little bit more of like togetherness, collaboration, transparency, conversation, communication wouldn't hurt. In fact, it might be just a little gets us over the threshold, right? Like,
Yep.
that's why like I don't consume, we talked about the culture piece. I really don't consume social media for soccer because I'm living it every day. It's my passion, distraction, it's my love, my profession. So, but I also have to like exercise that out because it's such a crazy place to be following a game or watching a game and see people posting. And that used to be like kind of part of how I used to consume stuff or how I used to consume stuff. And I finally was like, there's no joy in Mudfield for these guys. And
Right.
it's just like, so what are we doing? And the reality is that I think very few people know how hard it is to do
Yeah.
anything in this game. I mean, you can get into a really passionate conversation about Bob Bradley. He'll tell you scoring a goal is the hardest thing to do in sports, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
course, if you talk to um, Tony Gwynn back in the day, I think hitting like almost 400 is hard too, right? Like, I understand there's
Yeah.
like, what I mean? Like, everyone's can, you know, golf has failed many of people. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally understand that part, but, I would, if we can be more together in these things, not just the big issues, of course, the representation piece and soccer for all, and having black head coaches, having American born black coaches, which is another thing people don't really get into. There's levels to this, and that's another thing that we want to see too. And then just the access, I think, to the game at the highest level. It's not just when they're 8 or 9, but what about the 16, 7-year-old, 17-year old who's trying to be a first generation black kid in Northern Georgia? And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of see a pathway. I kind of see it
Right.
because I don't know what it's like for you, Scott, but my college experience was transformative, right?
Yep.
And I think you would get a lot of the guys who have meaningful experiences to say those were nice times and pivots in their life, fulcrums, catapult, launching pads, whatever. And it's that is what I get. I want people to really understand there's joy in that and creating that pathway for someone else, because the modeling is amazing, right? We all need models. We all need people who look like us or come from backgrounds like us who are trying to do something that we aspire to be. That's when I think about equality and representation is the modeling that you need to really increase those things.
So is one of the facets of what Black Players for Change is doing, is it developing the youth game and reaching down to grassroots and um, finding ways to get into neighborhoods that don't normally have soccer, that sort of thing. I mean, is that one of the things you guys are doing?
Yeah. So, for ease of conversation, there's like three key areas. So I would say education and governance is one pillar. Representation, something I just touched on, is the second pillar. And the third pillar, in no particular order, is access. And what does
Mm-hmm.
access mean? Just what I just touched on. It's not only for people already in the game and need that advance to keep them going, but what can we do to bring soccer to communities that are not served by a traditional soccer market? And
Mm-hmm.
what can we do to support and amplify the work that teams are doing, particularly MLS teams are doing in their market already, right? How can we magnify? How can we partner? How can we collaborate? Not only for Black History Month or Juneteenth, but year round. And there's some wonderful clubs that have uh, not only raised their hand, but stepped forward to say, hey, we want to have a real partnership with Black Players for Change that allows us to do the work over the course of a year. And I think for us, we think a lot about, what can we do? We want to have a presence in the traditional soccer sort of suburban experience, of course, right? That's the experience I grew up in. A lot of BPC players did. A lot of the American Black players grew up in those environments. Not everyone, but a pretty traditional suburban soccer environment. So, can we go to communities like Indianapolis? Can we go to communities like New Orleans? Can we continue to serve communities in New York? You know what I mean? Like just, Nashville, Atlanta, what can we do in those communities that are not only sort of mission fit for our organization, but really allow us to make the impact that we want, right? And to create the opportunities for engagement. So those are the areas that really mean the most to us in terms of access. We partner with U.S. Soccer Foundation right now on mini pitches. We are talking to a couple other organizations as well to figure out what we can do in terms of bringing the game to other access points. Right? It's how comfortable can I be leading an organization to get us in environments that are not comfortable to me from a soccer perspective. It's easy for me to go to Silver Lakes and Chino or to Wakeman and Cary. Those are places and spaces I know. I've been around forever. But can I really go and help introduce the game to kids who won't have other connectors outside of us potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how consistent can we be? Right? You can't just show up once a week or once a month. Once a week, it's actually not bad. You can't show up once a month and hope to move the needle as much as maybe once a week is. And what does that mean? Like a real collaborative approach. You have to find people who want to do the work together. I find there's a lot of people doing this work, and it's worth the investment in time to go find those people already doing the work and then say, hey, can we work together? Right? I'd much rather be an operator like a Jay-Z or a Rick Rubin where you can just produce whomever sound it is,
Right.
right? What's your sound? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you make your sound, not my sound. And I want to bring that out, and the partner's already doing the work because that's effective and efficient, honestly. Because it's not sustainable. I think people are seeing the D&I space shrink, if you will. I think people know that um, the ERGs, the employee resource groups, those are tough places to be now, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Who knows? But the point is like you have to grow. We want to be a platform that helps elevate the Black soccer experience, that connects Black culture, music, and art, and media and movie production. All these different things are starting to happen, and I think BPC can just be a nice little conduit for all those things ahead of what I think will just be a magical run here with Copa America this summer. I mean, look, this year's already banging. We got AFCON. Uh, we're going to have Euros. We're going to have the Olympics. We're going to have uh, and then the World Cup after, you know what I mean? And I just feel like the Women's World Cup, it's just like, it's exciting. I'm already like fired up on all the different things that are going to happen. And if the organization at BPC can be a part of all those things, great. If we can all just be a part of this magical soccer journey, good vibes too. And just keep it moving that
Right.
way.
So go back to how BPC started, and you were, I guess, in the bubble and COVID, and guys were together, and you know made useful use of their time, so to speak, and
Hmm.
got together and started talking. I'm assuming is what happened, and yeah, talk about that and how that panned out.
You know, I'm new to the position, and I would say that it would only be right to defer to the men who were in the room at the time. But here's what I'll say from afar. It was an amazing show of communication in no particular order. Here's everything. Here are all the ingredients that went in: communication, urgency, collaboration, strength, um, consensus, operational savvy.
Mm-hmm.
Because without any of those things, you don't have what happens, right? And also timing. I think it will be a story that gets told, I think, eventually, because when you hear the founders talk about the story, it's the founders being a Justin Morrow, or Ika Parr, or Dylan Ababa, and Jeremy Abovasi, and Earl Edwards Jr. These are all guys that were there in the moment saying, hey, this is what we need to do. And their equity as men and professionals worked. They leveraged it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they
Right.
were not good pros, right? I have to say, not everyone that's a professional is a pro, right? And I think I
Mm-hmm.
just have a lot of admiration for what they did in the moment because it took a lot. It took a lot of focus. It's a lot of. So I think someone needs to write a behind the scenes or sort of first person account of it because I've heard several accounts of it from different individuals, and I think each one is compelling, and it's not hyperbolic either, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just impactful, and I think that might be something even I should pursue from a content perspective is really being able to have that story out there told in our voice in a way, because it is significant, and I'm honored to be in this role as executive director because without it, it just sort of puts you in a position where maybe you don't have the alignment and the clarity that you're looking for. And I feel like I have that in this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the simple thing is like to have this emotional reaction, which I'm
Mm.
sure, when you saw that news going on at that time, like we're all emotional about it. And like to have the wherewithal to organize and know that like, okay, we
Mm.
can, we can organize around this and make something good come out of it is remarkable to me. Um,
It was an interesting time. I will add to Scott in the sense that there are a lot of I call it reverse plate tectonics in the black soccer community. That's what's happening right now. And what do I mean by that? So islands of success. There were so many of us that were on these amazing islands of success where maybe we were the only black person or one of two black people in an entire organization, right? Um, and we were just in these islands of success in soccer, and we'd get together. But really, that time, and I give a lot of credit to like Dante Washington and Eddie Pope, um, and some of the OGs, Evan Whitfield, um, and others who really helped sort of bring everyone together. And so you had that happening from like the OG perspective. And then you had these young guys, I'm sounding old now. Like it was just like a really cool movement where I think for the first time in a minute, there was an intentionality about staying together and working together for these things. And there was a lot of just shared experience too. lot of shared experience. There's a lot of venting and pain and hurt and sorrow, and because you're trying to figure out like what's happening, but then you're also like connected to this game where you want to see real changes and have a difference. So I think it's amazing that the organization has gotten this far. I have a huge task and a serious charge and challenge to take it to the next level, where the awareness and the recognition from a brand perspective is high, and we are connected. You often say when one is cut, we all bleed, and we want to be connected globally as well, and work with the
Mm-hmm.
PFA in addition to our conversations about MLSPA and MLS. How can we partner together with the players that are sort of out there, maybe on their own islands? So I'm excited about some of the strategy we're working on and what we're trying to do to grow. And I'm more excited about the men involved and the women involved who really want to make a change and see BPC as a change. I don't want to say change agent because it happens all the time, but just one of the variables that are needed to change things up for sure.
Yeah. So, as the executive director, what are your priorities? Where you hope to see things, in a year and 5 years, and how do you make it happen?
Um, Man, that's a. I guess, how do I make it happen? I think we have to be on our John Lewis, right? If you see something, say something. I think that's part of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to really be open and curious, be humble, take some chances. I think that's also
Mm-hmm.
important, right? And you know, I say this because my mother says this about me, but my vulnerability is my strength. So for me, it's how much humanity can we bleed into each other, and how much can we pour our goodness into each other. And I just feel like that's just super important. So I think for me, it's all going to come down to um, you can't change hearts and minds, right, all the time. But you can just keep working and collaborate and work with the people who've already stood up to be allies, who've already stood up to
Mm-hmm.
be people who want to march with you, but then people who also just honestly just want to get out of the way and do something a little bit different. You know what I mean? So, but no, I think it's a huge challenge, and certainly want to make sure that we have a good understanding about how it looks. You need to have a plan, right? I think that's a big part of it too. But who gets to be the stakeholders? The other thing I'd like to see is a real body of knowledge. Like, there's think tanks in every industry. Maybe there's a soccer think tank and they just never invited me. So I will Scott will humbly say, if that exists out there, and you've lost Scott's and Allen's invitation in the mail, please do hit us up after, and we'll make sure you have the
Well, I got
current
one.
information. You know what I mean?
Alan,
I just didn't. Oh, you got one. Oh man, see, I didn't get
no,
one.
I'm kidding.
So you know what I'm saying? But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm not trying to regulate anything by any stretch, but when you think about some of these institutes that have popped up, right? Global Initiative Institutes, or even Sundance back in the day, or these little, the Aspen Institute. Like, why not a little bit of a think tank, and people who just, and again, this could already exist, but really, what good ideas do you have? What's good for the game? And then just think about those things. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. I just say it's like Cheesecake Factory. Something on the menu is going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
Just have the menu. Just have the menu.
Yep.
You will find one thing. And then you know what? It's one thing. It's one thing. It's one thing. And you know how fast this stuff goes, right? I'm getting all nostalgia because someone brought up 94 the other day. Oh, it's the 40, it's the retrospective, and 30 years since 94. And I'm like, man, it feels like yesterday. And like, I have still vivid memories of being in these stadiums at these matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know how quickly it goes. So what if we just added one thing a year for those 30 years. We'd have 30 new things. We just would.
Yep.
And again, it's not sexy, it's not cool, it's not fast, but it's compound interest, and that always works. Always.
Yep. Undefeated.
Undefeated.
Yep. um, so, looking at my notes here, some other things that we can get into.
Yeah.
So what, as the executive director, kind of what are your priorities? And how do you like, what are they telling you that you need to get done? What are you telling yourself? Oh, this needs to be done, and that sort of thing, to get the most out of this organization?
That's a great question. And I would say the attitude has been really the board and the executive committee, everyone, like, what can we do to help you? Which has been fantastic. I myself put a lot of pressure on myself to fundraise and to develop, but also to do the little things really well. What are the little things? Have our social media, our website, our LinkedIn, our comms and media stuff really at a high level. Just do a lot of the simple business basics as a 501(c), creating the institutional
Mm-hmm.
memory and the infrastructure. That's very important. I think I've done that in the first handful of months, is really sort of create the policies, protocols, procedures that you need so the machinery can work from at an org perspective. Because once that gets going, you can then start to shift your focus toward, okay, what's my strategy? Okay, now I have a strategy. I have a two-phase strategy and execution plan. Okay, what do those three things mean? How do I get these partners on board with these? How do I create real value proposition for these partners? So, I want to find people who are going to help us bring soccer to communities that look like us, that is for everyone, that hasn't been touched before. I want to bring new programming, sustainable programming, consistent programming to the many pitches and some of those access opportunities for access that we talked about. I want to
Mm-hmm.
grow the brotherhood of the membership of the organization. I want to connect the old legends, if you will, of the game with the new kids on the block, and then the founders and everyone in between. Right. I want to have a safe space for all Black executives in soccer, whether you're working in the league or the club level, right? You know what I mean? Or you're a referee,
Mm-hmm.
like just really being the red thread that quilts together the entire Black American soccer diaspora. So that really fits my strengths. I can do a lot of different things well, depending on who you ask, though, the different opinions. But that's where I'm most effective, is operationalizing ideas and dreams and strategies, and then having the
Mm-hmm.
resilient mindset to get it all done, and the stick to itiveness, and the focus is something that I just rely upon. So I think the wins will be how much we can grow our organization from a community. And I think from a business 501(c) perspective is how much can we continue to show value in the fight for equality and
Mm-hmm.
anti-discrimination with the people and partners that want to do this work.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you guys see as the issues that are distinct to your community, and what do you see as things that
Mm.
you guys can do to counteract those?
It's a really good question. It's a question, actually, we talk at levels in the board level, which I really appreciate, in the executive committee, and we talk about the work we're doing and how does that feed into ourselves as proper football men. How do we, as Black men, right? So I'm trying to find the alignment, and sometimes they are distinct pathways. Some of the work we're doing, I hope to endeavor on, as Black men, is just for the Black community in terms of just social justice, equality. Now, is it about doing these things specific to soccer, or are they specific to wherever we can sort of reach out of our own community, right? So those are conversations
Mhm.
that we have. I would say additionally, all politics are local. How much can I empower the Black players, the allies in the league to speak on these issues, to be an advocate, to be a supporter, to be an ally? Um, how much can we create the marketing and the messaging about what we're trying to do, and the people to help us amplify that too? I think that's super important. So, I think it's important to have a guarded focus, right? You can't do everything. And that's why I think having a plan, sharing that with the board, making sure they're in full um, uh, alignment and agreement based on how collaborative and transparent the process has been. And then I think that allows us to go forward. Then also, too, we also have to dream about a world that doesn't exist, right? Like, racism in life is not taken completely out. You know what I mean? Like, so a part of it is also ideating, creating a world that doesn't exist right now,
Mhm.
and presenting that as a model and a goal to capture in the future.
Right. So there's 24% of players in the MLS are black, right?
Yeah,
Did I
about 20. Yeah, yeah, between 24 and 28, depending on what the
Okay.
number is. But that's a solid number. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And there's one black coach, head coach in the MLS. Is that right?
Yeah, this year, one black head coach, Coach Nancy
Hmm.
with the Columbus Crew this year.
Gotcha.
Last year, Robin, Frazier, Ezra, and Nancy were all head coaches at the start of the season.
Gotcha. And is that part of what you guys are addressing and trying to develop people to fill, be in those positions? I don't know. I don't know how that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like if
like
that's
how's that
part of the
even?
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that fits into the pillar of representation. So we've been working with MLS. MLS has a great program called MLS Advanced that really highlights up and coming coaches in a way that gives them access and opportunity to connect with chief soccer officers, general managers, and hiring managers in Major League Soccer. That's been helpful. There's a lot of work that goes into that, whether it be creating these profiles for the candidates to work on whatever they may need in the interview process. There could be a variety of different things and support. Sometimes it's introduction, sometimes it's a little bit more of the interview process. Sometimes it could be a combination of the two. So we partner and work with the league on that. And then for us, it's how can we create pathways that are distinct? Because look, at the end of the day, you know, it's not just Major League Soccer's job. It's not just it's like it's everyone's job. It's US Soccer. It's anyone who's a stakeholder. It's USL. It's USYS. And like there are some people doing it better than others, of course, of course. But at the end of the day, the college soccer game too, right? There's some almost 600 men's and women's programs. 90% of them are coached by white men or white women. Like 90%. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, it's creating pathways. It's creating like the real professional pathways that differentiate candidates from other people. It's identifying the kids who want to be pros but really want to be coaches. And I think it's how can DPC help support every aspect of the ecosystem? How can we support
Hmm.
the coaches at MLS Next? How can we support the academy coaches, the next pro coaches, the first team coaches? And it's a variety of different ways. So we have a Black Talent Fund that I started last year that goes to supporting Black coaches for whatever they need. Primarily in 2023, it was used for supplementing um, financial support for licensing and or things tied to United Soccer Coaches Convention. So we're going to continue
Hmm.
to provide those kind of services. We also do work in like resume and professional development services, right? Helping create that little CV that might pop. So we are doing what we can, but also more than anything is just being connected to each other. That's the because we all are in the same reservoir here. We're swimming in the same waters, and I've just really sort of taken on the role where I can just be a great advocate, supporter, write letters, make phone calls, but also listen to a coach going through the interview process. Also listen to a coach who doesn't get the or who gets the text we're going in another direction, right?
Hmm.
Those calls are just as important. So, I have my little, I would call it's been a prominent side hustle, but since 2021, I've helped 50 people get varying jobs in soccer and academia and in sports. And that's my little community is supporting those 50 individuals, whether they are on the technical side, the business side, the operations side, in college soccer, outside college soccer, USL, Major League Soccer, US Soccer. So, it's just do your little bit, do your bit.
Yep.
Not to sound like a old British, but just do your bit. I'm an excellent teammate and collaborator. That's just who I
Hmm.
am. That's who I was as a player. I like being on a team. So I have to create a DPC, a team, because I like being on a team and I know I'm really effective leading teams, managing teams, putting teams together. So that's my mindset is sort of glory to the cause, um, clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. That stuff still works.
Yeah. Um, so you guys are, 3, 4 years in with the organization. Have you looked to other leagues who have similar organizations to kind of find what works, or do you feel like the challenges that soccer faces in this country are unique? Or um,
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Actually, what we've leaned on as an organization, I believe, and again, I'd love to hear what the founders think. In my point of view as the ED, so America does a couple things really, really well when it comes to this, and I don't think there's a better country in the world or market for athlete activism than America. So I have a picture. Um, in one of my little man cave rooms of um, a meeting in Cleveland in 1968, the Cleveland Summit, and it was Jim Brown, Lou Alcindor, Muhammad Ali. It was a collection
I know the
of black
picture. Yeah.
gentlemen. You know the picture, so I
Oh,
stare at that thing every day. That is like we just there's no one better. So I have done a couple of things. One predates me, but I've tried to strengthen it. We have a great relationship with Players Coalition, which is the NFL version of BPC for ease of conversation. And
hmm.
Quan Bolin and Malcolm Jenkins and the current ED, Angela Chica, the entire team, Chris Hammond, in-house counsel, they're unbelievable and they've been so supportive and so helpful and they've really just guided us in terms of helping us do a lot of the rote mechanic stuff that I talked about. And they're an amazing resource and I'm really working hard to strengthen that relationship because they've been in the fight, they've done all this work and they understand that. So I see it as an opportunity for BPC to be a leader in the global space because of the subject matter expertise that black athletes have when it comes to activism. So how can I
Hmm.
support the athletes we have now doing the work, right? Like Jeremy Abobasi, who's doing fantastic work with his foundation, or someone like Dewan Jones, or whomever. Not to single out Kelly Acosta. I don't want to single out anyone because a lot of people are doing work. But how many tools can we give them to be better activists? So I really try to connect. Justin Morrow and I have a great relationship, and we're working together at the USC Race and Equity Center. So really understanding that the knowledge to be first learned and acquired is here. And then we can go out and see what else is out there for us to learn from, be humble in front of, be curious about. But I think there's so many amazing just heroes in this space, black men, black women. And, we're also inspired by also real life civil rights people, right? Soccer's chosen adversity. It's chosen adversity. It's not the life that every black person gets to lead. It's the one that's important to us that we lead. So we understand the magnitude of the fight in comparison to gerrymandering or redlining or voter suppression, or systemic racism. Like we understand that, and that's where we try to connect. In general, is at that level first, and if we can make the game even better because of our influence and who we're talking to and what we're talking about, then I think that's a great place to really sort of hang your hat at the end of the day. Is to leave it a little bit better, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the key, right? You know, if you the legends just don't pop up. Like that's just not how it works. Al knew he wanted to be Albert. He knew he wanted to be a legend in his own way, and guess what? When you become parts of these Hall of Fames and parts of these communities where they value what you've given, and to me, like that's my focus every day. I reverse engineering. Nelson Rodriguez has been a great friend and mentor and really helped me clarify that the last few years. Is like, you have to know what your value is. You have to know what you really want in terms of who you work with and the outcomes that are going to make you. Then you go and find something that fits that. You don't go the other way around because you'll never find it. That's for sure.
Right. Right. That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, what am I not touching on that needs to be addressed?
Well, first and foremost, always an amazing opportunity to be in community in the game, and I appreciate your allyship and appreciate the platform to speak on it, and I hope it was one in which people feel like, yeah, that's some good content, right? I hope I made someone's chores, someone's day, house cleaning, soccer daddying a little bit better, or soccer momming, whatever. But then,
Right.
honestly, I would say that you provide, I think, an opportunity for people to be themselves. So I'd rather express the gratitude for just being able to have a great conversation, be myself, and just to sort of talk all the things that are important to my world and my space, and then just to try to figure out how we can meet again and continue to have meaningful dialogue about things for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're really, I have to agree with one thing you said towards the beginning, and that is that you're a good dude.
No, I
That's what I've
appreciate
learned.
that.
I appreciate your time and hanging out, and absolutely, like I can't wait to have you on again and talk about
Appreciate you.
what you have going on, and it's fantastic, and I learned a lot. So
And when I'm
um,
in the DMV again, I'll send you a note.
you
Super
better.
thankful for the
Yeah,
time and the conversation to always chat and connect for sure.
absolutely. I really appreciate it. Hold on one sec.